Alright guys, it's Stephen here on BlueMoonRisingTV. I've been joined by Paul, who's just about managed to stay awake during this tedious, boring, in general, unwelcome international break. But what we're going to do for you today is run through the 5 most important, or at least 5 most interesting stats that summarise Manchester City's season so far. And in at number 5 is a subject that's actually pretty close to my heart. Now I had a theory last year that youth players weren't being used anywhere near as enough as they should have been. So what I've done, I sat there and added all the minutes up based on players who played last season up until this point in terms of up until today's date, and compared it to what Guardiola has done this year. And the interesting for me is he actually blows Pellegrini's youth selection out of the water. The weird thing is like Pellegrini actually had young players in the squad so many times last season, but the number of minutes is shockingly less. This season so far, 493 minutes have been given to our youth team players. That includes Maffeo a couple of games, Angelino's been on twice, Garcia a couple of times, Adebayo, Brahim, and that's 493 minutes total. At the same stage last year, and bear in mind we'd signed Patrick Roberts for a lot of money, and we'd also
Nacho,
yeah, he's exploded onto the scene. That is actually only 195. If you take away Roberts, who wasn't even an academy player, that's 141 minutes. 141 minutes compared to 493.
Yeah, it's always nice when your theories are proven right.
I knew it.
It looks like, I'm just worried whether you've searched out the exact statistics that back up your story. Lies, dumb lies and statistics. But no, it's true. And to be honest, I think all of us, deep down, we knew that to be the case. And like you say, you look at Patrick Roberts, not really a youth team player. You look at Kelechi Iheanacho, and I said, I maintained last season and all throughout the time when Pellegrini was here, that Kelechi Iheanacho burst onto the scene in spite of Pellegrini.
Yeah,
because if you look at the minutes compared to that Boney had, I mean, Boney, who just, from almost day one, it was obvious that he wasn't a Manchester City player. But I think Pellegrini had more invested in Boney because it was his signing, and it needed it to look as though it had been a success. And it was, I feel like it was in spite of, or just not caring about the results for Manchester City almost. Is that too far to say?
Well, the interesting for me as well is that actually this time last season, we actually had a massive injury crisis. So I actually even looked at the number of times a youngster appeared on the bench. Now, you'd think if there's a lot of players on the bench, at some point they're going to get on. Basically, Maffeo 3 times, Denayer, Garcia, Roberts 4 times, Barker 8 times, Evans twice, Glendon. There was about 15 to 20 non-new subs appearances last season for Pellegrini, despite having injured players there. And so far this season, it's been Gunn a couple of times and Adebayo. Basically, if Pep puts them on the bench, he's going to use them.
Yeah, Gunn obviously he's got to be on the bench, because if he's not on the bench, what's the point in being there?
What it goes to show is that Pep basically, he does young players. Some people said he wouldn't use them because he didn't use them very often at Bayern, which people countered, including myself, by saying their youth academy system wasn't up to scratch at Bayern. Here it is, and so far he's already showing confidence in the players. He's already smashed the number of minutes appeared at this stage last season. That will go up, and if young players on the bench, they will get used. And personally, as a fan of academy football and in general, including young players, that is music to my ears.
We know that Guardiola has been a long-term target. Pellegrini came out just over the weekend and said that he knew that Guardiola, he'd been told basically from the start that Guardiola was going to come in. This is how long the plan has been. Bayern Munich didn't have that plan. They just got him because obviously they're one of the best teams in the world. He's the best manager in the world, so they managed to get him. Whereas City, it's been going through the youth team. Their youth team hasn't been set up for Guardiola to come in. Ours has. So when they come in, you know this, obviously everyone at home watching this knows this, they know how to play the Guardiola way, so they're just going to slip in. And it's the same with Barcelona. They are taught from a very young age, pass the ball, keep possession, pressure, playing 3 at the back. So they just slot in very easily, whereas at Bayern, he wouldn't have had that advantage.
And the best thing about it is this is just the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion. People like Brahim have just made their debut. And then if you look at the under-18 so far this season, played 10 games, won 8, drawn 2, lost none. People like Sancho, Phil Foden, whatever, these are going to be stars of the future, and they will make their debut. It's probably inside the next year.
Brahim has already made his debut for Manchester City as well, which is incredible.
It's very good.
Such a young age.
It's very, very good.
So this is something to be very optimistic about, very excited about. And he would have put this at number 1, but unfortunately we've put it at number 5. Let's get on to number 4. The next most important stat for us is about that man, that ginger prince, KDB. No, I've not got any assists this season. I just set you up to make you look good.
Basically, that's how it works. I don't need to be made to look good.
Assisting Stephen. That's another new app for
Assisting
me.
Assisting a company.
But basically KDB this season has 6 assists. He leads the chart for the Premier League. Lallana's behind him, Hazard's behind him, Coutinho, all these players, and he is just
exactly.
Özil, who Arsenal fans on Twitter will have you believe he is the assist king, but he's not.
It's Kevin De Bruyne, mate.
And he played for Belgium at the weekend. They won 8-1, I think, against Estonia, and he was played in a deep role for this time. So for City, he's been playing behind the. He's been in like a 10.
False 8 is the technical term.
Yeah, he's been playing on the left a little bit. He can play deep. He is so intelligent. He's only just turned 25. He's got a head beyond those years. He's like a 35-year-old, I think, sometimes in how he plays. And he's just going to keep getting those assists and cropping up out of nowhere. Do you know what? I think, speaking of another player who's been doing great, I think if Gundogan had been playing as many minutes as KDB, I think he'd be up there as well, because he's come in and he has been setting up some wonderful assists and getting in with the goals as well.
Yeah, he had a slightly slow start to the season, understandably, because he had a dead knee, basically. His knee was done in and his back was done in from the year before and whatever. And in general, he just had a lot of bad luck and he had no pre-season. Thrown into the most intense in terms of pressure league in the world and expected to fit in. He was a little bit slow and we all a little bit cautious, but you can see his quality. And now he started adding goals to his game. He will just grow and grow in confidence.
He's playing in a different role. And this is about KDB, so we'll get back to him, but he's playing further ahead now as well than he did. He's played deeper. But KDB, he is just a man who we can't say enough about him. He's got a few goals, he's got some free kicks, and he's just playing with an absolute freedom. He doesn't mind being played out on the left if he needs to as well. No. What else is there to say about KDB? He is just wonderful.
For me, when the old guard, Messi, Ronaldo, that lot, they eventually move on, he's going to be up there, potentially, if not winning the Ballon d'Or. I know that's a very high praise, but if City get to the level that they should be under Guardiola, I suspect 2 years from now, 3 years from now, if we're not winning the Champions League, we're getting very, very close, in my opinion, and we should be this kind of brilliant team that's evolved to a new level. I think that will happen. I genuinely believe that to be true. And De Bruyne will be at the heart of that. He will be there, being revered in the same way Iniesta and people that are revered, because he's still very young. And look at what he does on the big stage. Unreal. He has that ability that we've not probably had since Yaya Toure to score a big goal when it most matters. The goal against Barcelona, that free kick, that is that decisive quality that wins you games. That is what you pay that money for. Players like that are once in a lifetime, and he's an exceptional player, getting better and better. And I think in general, we're going to love him for years to come.
But Jose Mourinho doesn't rate him, so on to number 3.
And the third point is actually the clean sheets, or the lack of so far in the Premier League. We've actually only managed to keep a clean sheet twice in 11 games so far. Yes, I know we have been scoring plenty of goals, but Pep is a perfectionist. We should be perfectionists too as fans, and I think he'll be the first to admit that. Maybe we should be expecting a little bit more defensive. We should need to cut out individual mistakes, sloppy own goals, things like that. And there is room for improvement there, isn't there?
Yeah, I think it's down to playing new systems, playing 3 at the back, playing 4 at the back. New players coming in there. John Stones has done wonderfully, but there's still been the odd error in his game that will be ironed out. But there's an argument at the minute, I think, in the City community about where we need to improve the most. Is it up top, which we'll get to in a bit, or is it in defence, because we're maybe not converting all the goals, but also we're leaking goals as well. We did a video about fullbacks, about which fullbacks should come in, and there was 1 or 2 voices out there which said they're getting too much stick because we've not actually conceded that many goals. But the thing is, they've been these goals that have been sloppy. That's been the issue, and we need to be keeping clean sheets to be able to win the Premier League. You need to keep clean sheets.
To me, if you look at each individual section of the team in terms of goalkeeper, defender, midfield, attacking, loosely based around those kind of preconceived positions, I would say the defence is the one that's least like a Pep team at the moment. You look at midfielders, he's got people like Silva, De Bruyne, Gundogan, Fernandinho. He loves these players. He would play them in any team he was in. Even up front, the likes of Sterling, Nolito, Aguero, once again, class players. Sane, he's signed. He's obviously he likes Kelechi, Gabriel Jesus is going to come in. In general, these are what you would say would be kind of Pep kind of players. Defence, I wouldn't say that's the case other than Stones. Company's never there. He's dead as well. He may as well be. Otamendi, he's not dead.
He's not dead. No. Let's just clear that up before his lawyers get onto us.
Sorry, Vinny. I love you, Vinny. But then the fullbacks definitely aren't Pep Guardiola players. Like in terms of the way they play, they've tried, all of them have. But this is still the one area I would say that isn't quite refined yet. He hasn't got the ball-playing defenders. He hasn't got his Alabas. He hasn't got his Albas or his PKs or his Dani Alves yet. The players that you would associate with a Guardiola kind of team. He's just got John Stones, really. He's the one that can actually do the Guardiola kind of way. Zabaleta, Kolarov's done all right, in spits and spats. Clichy tries. Sané's okay, but none of these are what you would say are Guardiola fullbacks.
Yeah, Maffeo actually does look like a Guardiola player as well, so we're hoping that he'll be blooded in and get the opportunity.
In that is, it's no surprise that maybe that is our weakest area at the moment, because it's the one that needs the most work. It's the one that maybe he's having to compromise a little bit on, because it's not quite ticking the way it is. So there will be some mistakes when the communication isn't quite there. So I suspect we'll have to kind of just deal with that a little bit until the summer, maybe.
Let's not forget as well that he tried to sign Laporte as well. And that fell through.
I mean, we got him now.
It seems more and more apparent now than ever why he went for him. Laporte, because he doesn't seem to quite trust Otamendi there, does he? He's a bit too haphazard.
I don't trust Otamendi, even being totally honest. Otamendi, he's the kind of player who looks good when he's got a very good player alongside him, but he doesn't when he's on his own.
And he shouldn't be relying on a young John Stones to lead him,
no,
really, should he?
It says all about a player's ability if they're not reliable when they're in a situation where they have to kind of lead. Otamendi's a warrior, he's likeable, he battles and all that kind of stuff, but he does have a tendency to just switch off and disappear. Like, it made the difference in the League Cup game when Vincent Kompany came at half-time and Otamendi was switched over to Ibrahimovic. He lost his head. And sadly, he was bullied around physically when Kompany wasn't being bullied in the first half. Otamendi is a good player, but he's not an elite world-class player. He's not a Guardiola centre-back, and I do think that he's one that will look to maybe improve on. I think if Laporte was here, it'd be Laporte and Stones now. That would be our first choice centre-back pairing. Otamendi would be sat on the bench.
If you think about the iconic images of like the players leading the line, putting their hands up in the air, pointing, if you think of Stones, I can think of loads of images, iconic images already of him pointing, telling the players where to go, getting everyone organised, battling. Whereas Otamendi, he'll go in for a great tackle here and there that looks like brings a great photo, but has he got that sort of, as you say, that commanding element to his game? Maybe not.
Don't dislike him, I just don't fully trust him. That's the only way I can put it, and I think I'll probably get some stick for that. But
this has turned into an Otamendi roasting session,
it's not even that extreme. It's just, I just think he's a good player, but not a great player, and I don't think he'll ever be a great player for Man City personally. But yes, it's a defence issue, and I guess he's one of many players that cliche won't ever be a Guardiola fullback entirely, because he's been caught a little bit mentally. And then even Sanya and Zabit, as much as they try on your archetypal Pep Guardiola fullback, and that's just a matter of fact. It's not a criticism. I love Zabit, and I thought he was excellent against Barcelona, but he isn't going to do a Dani Alves. He isn't going to offer that pace and width that he used to be able to anymore, because that's just a matter of fact. Life does go on.
That's it. Okay, on to number 2. As a nice memorable stat, this number is 9.1. Is
my favourite number.
Yeah, I know. It was inevitable 9.1 was going to be in there somewhere. But this is the distance covered on average by Sergio Aguero this season, and that is compared to 7.8 last season, it's compared to against West Brom 10.1.
10.2 actually. It's all about the 0.1. But yeah, he ran.
I rounded it down.
Rounded up. Favourable. But he ran 10.2 kilometres against West Brom. You have to bear in mind that came after people said he'd been dropped and Pep didn't like him and he wasn't going to be used again. Against Barcelona, against West Brom, he ran his little Argentinian heart out, and he'd come off the back of a few games where he'd been rested because he hadn't been in great form. He'd had a couple of little hints of an injury away on international duty, and if anything, it made a lot of sense. Pep is clearly trying to manage Aguero's situation, which a lot of people over the few years haven't done for him. He's always been injured because we've always just rushed him back when he's not been fully fit, or we haven't seen the warning signs in advance of a player looking tired or looking a little bit niggly or on the verge of getting an injury. And this has been proactive, and I like that personally.
Yeah, a fit Sergio Aguero, let's just say it, will probably win us the league. And if we can keep it, I mean, we've almost forgotten a little bit because he normally by this point in the season has picked up at least a few more knocks. Yeah. At the minute, he's been kept under control, he's been well looked after. Something that Guardiola actually has received a lot of criticism for in the past is not having a good injury record because of the intensity.
I think he's trying to do it. I think De Bruyne has sat out a game or two. I think he hasn't been rushed back. I think Kompany's been uber caution. But I think even like Sterling was rested the other day because I think he obviously saw him on the edge of being tired. You have to be proactive. In general, we've been far too reactive with injuries and only kind of resting him when they've actually got an injury. But sometimes you have to see like one more game and his muscle could be ready to go. And that's what they're doing now. I know it may be frustrating as fans. I like that. But going on to Aguero's actual stats, he's averaging more goals per game, 0.89 compared to 0.8 last season. Even he's actually creating chances as well. 1.22 chances created per game to 0.90 last season.
So he's contributing more to the game.
More touches in the box as well.
Yeah, this is exactly the kind of player that Pep Guardiola wanted. It's the kind of Aguero knows it, Guardiola knows it, and now they just start. And you know what? This thing about him covering distance, as the season goes on, he's going to do that even more as well because he's learning the Guardiola way. He's not going to come instantly. Yeah. But so the first few games, it probably wasn't there. Pep mentioned it. He called him out on it. He said that he wasn't probably working quite hard enough off the ball. He's addressed that. What more can you ask for? So as far as I'm concerned, all the, let's just say it, bullshit around the bad relationship between them, him benching him, everyone could see it. Like, we got beat 4-0, and we'll say it again and again and again. We didn't play badly against Barcelona. We contained them. It was a silly mistake, a slip, and that was it. He set up in the right way, and it was just the result didn't go our way. But now, Aguero clearly is on the same, they're on the same wavelength now.
People forget that Aguero is, every player, regardless of how good they are, still has to learn. Aguero is still learning this Guardiola system in the same way that Fernandinho is, the way that Silva, De Bruyne is, the way that Vincent Kompany would be if he was playing regularly. All these players are learning to play take this Guardiola way. And Aguero isn't the oldest player in the world. He's still a relatively young man. They're all still adapting to style. It'll take a bit of time. Like, you can't expect Aguero. Maybe we have high expectations because he's a world-class player to immediately pick up something quicker, but you have to pick up like everyone else. And so far, he's learning. His game is getting more rounded. He'll eventually start to link up a little bit better, playing the 1-2s, controlling the ball, getting touches, creating chances. And the signs, in my opinion, are promising. There'll be a setback along the way every now and then, but that's human, that's nature. And I think Aguero will become a more rounded player. I think he'll eventually click and end up being like a Lewandowski was at Bayern, where he was involved in everything, scoring goals, creating goals, and being incredible.
When, just very last point, when he took over at Bayern, Pep, he had an issue with Mandzukic, who he notoriously didn't take it on board at all. He just felt like his ego was too big. Do you see that with Sergio Aguero? I do not see that for a second.
He hasn't got an ego at all.
He's someone who has just got a brilliant attitude. He's sometimes arguably a bit, maybe fragile, but he's anything but arrogant. And this is for one of the best players, a player with the best strike rate in Premier League history, and he's not a dick.
I reckon if Pep could give Aguero 10% more cockiness, he actually would. Because I think he said he doesn't realise how special he is. Sometimes he needs to realise how special he is for the team.
It's like you.
Yeah, well, exactly. Sometimes I just need a hug.
Need an arm around your shoulder. I'll give him a hug after this stat anyway.
On to the final stats. Now, this is the final stat, and it summarises everything you need to know about Manchester City this season. We're first in basically everything: possession, created chances, shots, completed dribbles, passes, touches in the opposition box, and third in one of them, which is
converting those chances.
Yes, that's basically where we've come unstuck a little bit so far recently. We've actually been playing exceptionally well, according to the statisticians. We've been battering teams in terms of all attacking statistics, but we've just dropped off a little bit, and we're not converting chances in the same way that we were at the start of the season. Now, trying to understand this is impossibly hard, because it's like trying to understand why a brain does what it does. You can't really understand every single aspect of a human's mentality, but it all boils down to maybe a little bit of lack of self-confidence or something like that. But for whatever reason, we're doing exactly the same things, but the ball just isn't going in the back of the net at the moment.
Yeah, and that's it. I think it's something that hopefully, like you said, it's hard to analyse. What is this? Is it confidence? But you can see we're getting into the box, and it's just, I just think we're going to have to rely, sometimes I feel like we need a player like a Fernandinho or Kevin De Bruyne just to grab the game by the scruff of the neck, try for some shots from distance. We've said it again and again, a peak Yaya Toure would be exactly what we need at this point when you can't break down defences. But we've also, you would say, been incredibly unlucky. I think eventually that tide has got to turn. I think we were lucky at the start of the season, we've been unlucky now. I think we find a middle ground now until the end of the season, we'll be okay.
In general, things like this tend to go in like peaks and troughs confidence, don't they? Sometimes you go through a hot streak where everything you touch turns to gold and every shot goes in and whatever. Yeah. And then you have runs of games where you just can't hit, you couldn't hit a Spartan door with a banjo or whatever. It's hard to do. But it just happens. That is life. Aguero won't miss 2 penalties in one game ever again. Touch.
Well, it was KDB and Aguero, but it's ridiculous. Both playing penalties in the exact point where against the tall goalkeeper you don't play penalty.
But that's football. That's football. It's ridiculous. But that is a stat that probably does kind of sum up our season so far.
And I would say that on the balance of things, when it eventually levels out, we'll be okay as a result.
Well, they're pretty good stats. I mean, if someone said at the start of the season you're going to be first in everything and third in chances created, you'd be like, that's not bad, really.
Yeah, and if just one of those draws, if we'd have converted them into a, not conceded a silly goal, got one of those goals,
top of the league,
then we'd be top of the league by now.
Aguero doesn't miss that open goal. De Bruyne doesn't miss that chance when the ball fills through to him, or Stones doesn't pass it without looking to someone, whoever. And you're top of the league. It's such fine margins in football, but that is the beauty of the game and we love. And that's the 5 stats there summed up. Yeah. Blues, what did you make? Any more stats that you've seen knocking about the internet that sum up City's season so far? What is your favourite stat? What do you make of all the U-team players being involved? Drop a like in the video, get typing below and subscribe, and we will see you soon for more videos.